I never thought I'd live to see the day my own blood turned against me. It didn't happen in some dramatic thunderstorm or during a fight over money. No, it started on an ordinary Sunday morning in the quiet little home where my wife and I spent 40 years building a family, a house once filled with laughter, now echoing with words that cut deeper than any knife. And when my daughter-in-law raised her hand against my wife, I stepped in to protect her. But what broke me wasn't the fight. It was what my son said after. My name's Robert Hayes, and I've lived in a small town in Oregon my whole life. My wife Linda and I married young. We built everything together, our home, our business, and our family. We raised our son Daniel to be kind, responsible, and strong. At least that's what I thought. Daniel met Emily about 5 years ago. She was beautiful, smart, and full of charm. The kind of woman who knew how to make everyone feel special. Linda adored her at first. She'd say, "Robert, that girl's got spark. She'll bring life into this family." And for a while she did. But things changed after their wedding. Subtle at first. Little comments, small eye rolls, moments that didn't mean much alone, but when you added them up, started to tell a story neither of us wanted to admit. Emily didn't like how close Daniel was to his mother. She'd say things like, "You're a grown man, you don't need to run to your mom for everything." Linda would laugh it off, but I could see how much it hurt her. Our boy had always been her heart. She lived for him, and the more Emily pulled him away, the quieter Linda became. It all came to a boil one morning. Daniel and Emily had come over for brunch, a simple family meal. Linda made her famous pancakes, the ones Daniel had loved since he was 5. We were sitting around the table, sunlight spilling through the kitchen window. It was peaceful. For a while it felt like old times. Then Emily spoke up. "Linda, I told you I'm gluten-free now. Why would you make pancakes?" Linda smiled gently, trying to ease the tension. "Oh, honey, I'm sorry. I didn't know." "Daniel didn't mention it." Emily gave a small, sharp laugh. "Of course he didn't, because he never tells you anything anymore." I felt the air shift. Daniel looked down, clearly uncomfortable. That's enough." But Emily didn't stop. "No, it's not enough, Daniel. Every time we come here, it's like I'm competing with your mother. She treats you like you're still her little boy." Linda's eyes glistened, her voice trembling. "Sweetheart, I don't mean to interfere. I just love my son, that's all." Emily stood up, her chair screeching against the floor. "Love, you call this love? You smother him. You make him feel guilty for having a life." I could see Linda's hands shaking as she tried to calm her. "Emily, please." That's when it happened. Emily slammed her hand on the table, the plates rattling, and before I could move, she raised her hand, her palm hovering in the air as if she might strike Linda. Something in me snapped. I stood so fast my chair fell backward. "That's enough," I shouted, my voice louder than I'd ever heard it. Emily froze, her hand still mid-air. Linda flinched, tears spilling down her cheeks. I stepped between them. "You ever lift your hand toward my wife again, you'll regret it." Daniel stood up too, his face pale, caught between two worlds, his wife and his parents. For a moment I thought he'd stand beside me, protect the mother who raised him, but instead, he said words that shattered everything I believed about him. "Dad, don't talk to her like that." My chest tightened. "What did you just say?" "She's my wife," Daniel said, his voice trembling but firm. "You don't get to threaten her." I couldn't believe it. My son, the boy who once ran to his mother after every scraped knee, was now standing in front of her, defending the woman who nearly hit her. Linda whispered, "Daniel, please, son." But her voice broke mid-sentence. Emily, with a smug tilt of her chin, stepped behind Daniel, her hand resting on his shoulder like she'd already won. Daniel's eyes were hard now, distant. "We're leaving. And maybe it's better if we don't come back for a while." The silence that followed was unbearable. Only the ticking of the kitchen clock filled the air. I wanted to speak, to say something, anything to pull him back. But nothing came out. They walked out the door. Linda sank to the floor, sobbing quietly, her hands covering her face. I knelt beside her, my own tears burning behind my eyes. "He didn't mean it," I whispered, even though deep down I wasn't sure anymore. That day, something in our house changed. It wasn't just the air or the silence. It was the heart of the home that broke. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning. 'Cause the next time we saw Daniel and Emily, things would get far worse. The house stayed quiet for weeks after that day. Too quiet. Linda moved through it like a ghost, folding Daniel's old shirts, staring out the window at the road he used to ride his bike on. Every little thing reminded her of him. The sound of his laughter still echoed in the hallway, like time refused to let go. I tried to fill the silence with small talk, about the garden, the weather, the news. But nothing reached her. She'd nod, smile faintly, and go back to her world of memories. At night, when we lay in bed, I'd hear her whisper his name, Daniel. Sometimes I'd hold her hand in the dark, but she'd turn away, quietly crying into her pillow. I hated Emily for what she'd done, for dividing us, for turning my son against his own mother. But I also hated myself. Maybe I'd pushed too hard, raised my voice when I shouldn't have. Maybe if I'd stayed calm, things would have gone differently. 3 months passed before we saw Daniel again. It was early autumn, that kind of golden season when the air smells like dry leaves and the evenings come too soon. He showed up at the door unexpectedly. No call, no text, just there. When Linda opened the door and saw him, her breath caught. Danny, she whispered, her eyes wide, a mixture of joy and fear. He smiled faintly. Hey, Mom, she didn't hesitate. She threw her arms around him, tears spilling before she could even speak. I watched from the hallway, my chest heavy with something I couldn't name. Then I saw her, Emily, standing a few feet behind him, arms crossed, face unreadable. Linda's joy faltered for just a moment when she noticed her, but she quickly wiped her eyes and smiled. Emily, come in, sweetheart. Emily nodded stiffly, stepping inside like she was entering enemy territory. They sat in the living room, an awkward stillness filling the space between words. Linda offered them coffee. Emily declined. Daniel accepted, his eyes darting between us like a man caught in two storms. So, I said finally, breaking the silence. How's the new place? Daniel shrugged. It's good. We're settling in. Linda smiled, trying to keep things light. That's wonderful, honey. Maybe we can visit sometime? Before Daniel could answer, Emily spoke. We've been really busy. And honestly, I think it's best if we all take some space for a while. Linda's smile faded, the color draining from her face. Space? Emily, we've already had 3 months of space. Emily sighed dramatically. I'm just saying, every time we're here, something happens. I don't want another scene. I clenched my jaw. You mean the scene you caused? Daniel's expression tightened. Dad, please. No, Daniel, I said, my voice low but firm. You stood there and watched your wife raise her hand at your mother. And you told me not to talk to her like that. You think that's something a son says? Emily leaned back, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Here we go again. The great Robert Hayes lecture. You just can't move on, can you? Move on? I snapped. You humiliated my wife in her own home. Daniel stood up, his face red now. Enough, both of you. Linda rose too, her voice breaking. Please, stop it. Just stop. The room went silent again. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, breathing hard. I didn't come here to fight. I came because Mom texted me last week about her doctor's appointment. Linda nodded, still teary-eyed. Yes, I wanted to tell you myself. It's nothing serious, just my heart's been acting up. The doctor said I need to take it easy. For a moment, Daniel's anger melted. His eyes softened as he looked at her. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? She smiled weakly. Didn't want to worry you, sweetheart. Emily muttered under her breath. You mean you wanted attention? I turned to her sharply. What did you just say? Robert, don't, Linda whispered. But I couldn't hold it in anymore. You've been in this family for 5 years, Emily, and all you've done is sow hate. You want space? Fine, but don't you dare insult my wife again. Emily smirked. You really think Daniel's still your little boy, huh? Maybe that's the problem. Daniel's voice cracked. Emily, stop. But she didn't. You act like his mother's the only woman in his life. You don't see how toxic that is. Linda gasped softly, clutching her chest. Toxic? Daniel turned just in time to catch her as she stumbled. The color drained from her face. Mom! He shouted. I rushed to her side, heart pounding. Linda, breathe. Come on, breathe. Her hand gripped my arm weakly. I'm okay. I just need to sit. We called an ambulance. The paramedics came fast. voices calm and efficient. I remember standing on the porch, watching them load her into the back. Daniel right beside me, pale, shaking, silent. Emily stayed inside, arms folded, her face cold as stone. At the hospital, we waited for hours. The doctor finally came out, explaining it was a mild heart attack brought on by stress. She'd need rest, medication, and no emotional strain. When we went in to see her, Linda smiled faintly through the oxygen tubes. "I'm okay," she whispered. Daniel sat by her bed, holding her hand. "I'm so sorry, Mom, I should have been here." She brushed his cheek gently. "You're here now. That's all that matters." I wanted to believe things would change after that night, that Daniel would see who Emily really was, that we'd all start healing. But I saw it in Emily's eyes as she stood in the corner of that hospital room, watching us, cold, jealous, and silent. She wasn't done with us, not by a long shot, and deep down I knew this was only the calm before a storm that would destroy everything left of our family. The house didn't feel like home anymore after Linda came back from the hospital. The walls seemed to echo differently, quieter, heavier. The laughter we used to share had turned into whispers of caution. I'd hover around her like a shadow, afraid that one wrong word, one bit of stress could send her heart spiraling again. She'd tell me, "Robert, stop watching me like that." Fine, but I wasn't fine. None of us were. Daniel started visiting again, at least once a week. For a while, I thought maybe things were turning around. He'd mow the lawn, help with groceries, sit with his mom for hours, talking softly like he was trying to make up for lost time. But Emily never came. Not once. Every time Linda would ask, "Is Emily doing all right?" Daniel's face would tighten. "Yeah, she's fine, just busy with work." We both knew that was a lie. One afternoon, I caught Daniel alone in the garage, just staring at his old bike, the same rusty thing he'd ridden every day as a kid. I leaned on the doorframe and said, "You used to love that bike." He didn't look up. "Yeah, Mom used to yell at me for leaving it in the rain." I smiled sadly. She still would. He laughed under his breath, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. Do you think people can change?" The question hung in the air. "Depends. Why?" He hesitated, running his thumb along the handlebar. "Because I'm not sure Emily and I are the same people we were when we got married. We fight all the time. She says I'm too close to you and Mom, that I still act like a kid." I sighed. "Son, marriage isn't about control. It's about balance. But if someone's trying to cut you off from the people who love you most, that's not love." He nodded slowly, his voice low. "Yeah, maybe." That night, Linda asked, "Did you notice Daniel seemed sad today?" I nodded. "He's starting to see who she really is." She smiled faintly. "Maybe he just needs time." But time was the one thing we were running out of. A few days later, Daniel called late at night, 11:30 p.m. His voice was shaking. "Dad, I need to come over. Is everything okay?" I asked, already reaching for my keys. "No," he whispered. Emily threw a glass at me. I just need somewhere to go." By the time he arrived, his knuckles were bleeding, small cuts from shattered glass. He looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. Linda rushed to him, pulling him into her arms. "Oh my God, Daniel. What happened?" He broke down right there, crying like he hadn't since he was a boy. "She's not who I thought she was, Mom. She says I ruined her life. That marrying me was a mistake." Linda stroked his hair, tears falling quietly. "No, baby. You didn't ruin anything. You just loved the wrong person." He stayed the night. I heard him pacing the guest room until dawn. The next morning, Emily showed up. She didn't knock. She just walked in, heels clicking against the hardwood floor, eyes full of fire. "Where is he?" she demanded. Linda froze at the kitchen counter, still in her robe. "Emily, it's early." "Don't Emily me," she snapped. "He's my husband and you have no right to keep him here." I stepped between them. "What's your tone, young lady?" She laughed bitterly. "Oh, the great Robert Hayes again. Always playing the hero." "Daniel came here because he needed space," I said. "You're not dragging him out until he's ready." She took a step closer, eyes cold. "You think you can control him forever? He's not your little boy anymore, Robert. He's mine now." Linda's voice trembled. "He's our son, Emily. And if you truly loved him, you wouldn't treat him like this." Emily turned sharply toward her, venom in her voice. "Don't you dare lecture me about love." You're the reason he's so weak. Something in Linda's face broke, a mix of shock and heartbreak. Weak? She whispered. Daniel appeared in the doorway then, his face pale, his voice low but firm. Emily, stop. That's enough. She looked at him, almost incredulous. You're siding with them again? I'm not taking sides, he said quietly. I just can't do this anymore. For a moment, everything went still. Then Emily's voice dropped, soft and sharp like a blade. If you walk out that door, Daniel, don't come back. He didn't answer. He just picked up his bag, walked past her and out the door. She didn't follow. Instead, she turned to me with eyes full of hate. You'll regret this, she said, her voice shaking with fury. Both of you will. Then she left, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. Linda sat down slowly, her hands trembling. Robert, she scares me. I knelt beside her, holding her close. She can't hurt us anymore, sweetheart. Daniel's home now. But even as I said it, something inside me felt uneasy. Like those weren't the end of her words, but a promise. For a few weeks, things were almost normal again. Daniel found a small apartment nearby. He'd come over every evening for dinner, sometimes bringing flowers for his mom. We'd laugh, talk, even watch old home movies together. Linda's smile came back. Not all the way, but enough to give me hope, until one cold December night, when the phone rang again. It was Daniel. His voice was shaking, barely audible. Dad. I think someone's been following me, I froze. What, who? He hesitated. I don't know. But my car tires were slashed tonight and I found a note on my windshield. What did it say? Silence, then softly. You took him from me. Now I'll take everything from you. I felt the blood drain from my face. Daniel, lock your doors. I'm coming right now. But deep down, I already knew who it was. And for the first time in my life, I was afraid that revenge had finally found its way to our door. The police said the note could have been a prank. Probably just kids, the officer said, writing something on his clipboard while Daniel stood beside me, pale and sleepless. But I saw his hands shaking, the dark circles under his eyes. This wasn't a prank. After that night, Daniel didn't sleep much. Neither did I. He'd call me at random hours just to make sure everything was okay at home. Dad, are the doors locked? Yeah, son. Go get some rest. But his voice would always tremble. I keep seeing her car outside, Dad. I swear she's watching me. Linda tried to stay calm, but she jumped at every sound, every creak of the floorboards, every shadow that moved outside the window. She'd sit in her chair by the window, the one she used to use to watch the sunset, but now she just stared into the dark. One night she said quietly, Robert, maybe we shouldn't have pushed her. I turned from my chair, confused. Pushed who? Emily, she whispered. She's angry. She's hurt. And maybe she's right. Maybe we did take Daniel from her. Linda, I said gently. Emily did that herself. She broke this family with her hate. Don't blame yourself. But she just sighed, eyes glassy with tears. When a woman loses control like that, it's not hate she's feeling. It's pain. The next morning we found Daniel asleep in his car in our driveway. He hadn't wanted to wake us, he said, but he was afraid to stay at his apartment. I think she's been inside, he whispered. Things were moved around. My phone charger, the picture of Mom on the shelf, gone. Linda reached for him. Oh, Daniel. That's when I noticed the way his hands trembled. He looked like a man unraveling bit by bit. I knew the fear wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was what she represented. Everything broken between us. For a few days, he stayed with us. The house felt tense, like we were holding our breath. I'd hear footsteps in the hallway at night and find Linda checking the locks again, whispering prayers under her breath. Daniel stopped eating, stopped shaving. His eyes were hollow, haunted. He'd sit at the kitchen table for hours, staring at nothing. One afternoon, I walked in and found him holding one of Emily's old scarves, the pale blue one she used to wear in the early days. He was running it through his fingers like it was something fragile, something that still meant love. She wasn't always like this, he murmured. I know, I said quietly. She used to laugh. She used to dance in the kitchen, remember? She made Mom that birthday cake 2 years ago. She tried so hard to fit in, I nodded. People change when they feel cornered, son. But that doesn't excuse what she did. He looked up at me, tears in his eyes. I still love her, Dad, even after everything. And right then, I realized that was the real trap. Not the threats, not the fear, love. The kind that binds you to the very person tearing you apart. That night it rained, hard. The kind of Oregon rain that drowns out every other sound. Around midnight I woke up and saw the glow of a light outside. Daniel's car headlights. I went out barefoot, rain hitting my face, and saw him sitting in the driver's seat, staring straight ahead. I tapped the window. "Daniel, what are you doing?" He didn't look at me. His voice was flat. "She texted me." My stomach dropped. "What did she say?" He showed me the phone. A single message from Emily. "Meet me where it all started." "No one else." "Don't," I said immediately. "This is what she wants, control." "She just wants to talk," he whispered. "Maybe end it for good." "Then let it end without you being there," I snapped. "You've already given her too much." He finally turned toward me. His face looked older than his years, tired, defeated. "Dad, I need to know why she hates me this much." Before I could stop him, he started the car. The taillights disappeared into the rain. I stood there, soaked to the bone, heart pounding. Something deep inside me screamed that this was wrong, that love mixed with anger could only end one way. 2 hours passed. No call, no message. Linda came down the stairs, her robe clutched tight around her. "Robert, where's Daniel?" I couldn't meet her eyes. "He went to talk to her." Her face went white. "You let him go?" I tried to stop him. "Oh God," she whispered, gripping the wall. "Robert, you let him go." We called his phone. Straight to voicemail. I drove for miles in the rain, headlights cutting through fog, every road looking the same. I checked the places I thought he might be. Her apartment, the park they used to walk in, the diner where they had their first date. Nothing. When I came home around dawn, Linda was sitting by the phone, hands shaking, eyes red. "Any word?" she asked. I shook my head. No, for the next 2 days we heard nothing. No calls, no police report. Just silence. Then on the third morning his car was found, parked near the cliffs outside town. Engine off, doors locked, but no sign of Daniel. The police searched for hours, days, weeks. They called it an ongoing missing person case. Linda stopped eating. She sat on the porch every evening, waiting for headlights that never came. Sometimes she'd whisper, maybe he just needed space. Maybe he's with friends. But her voice was hollow, like she didn't believe her own words. At night, I'd hear her crying softly, calling his name. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, the last look he gave me through that rain-streaked window. I told myself he was still out there, that maybe he'd come home once the storm inside him passed. But deep down, I knew something had ended that night. Revenge doesn't always scream or break things. Sometimes it's quiet. It seeps in slowly until love turns into guilt, and guilt eats you alive. The weeks turned into months. Winter came and the world went quiet. But inside the house, silence had a sound. A heavy, suffocating hum that wrapped around every corner. Linda stopped speaking much. She'd wander through the house as if Daniel might walk in at any moment, his shoes wet from rain, his voice calling out, "Mom?" But he never did. She still cooked dinner for 3, every night. And every night she'd set his plate down at the table, straighten the napkin, and whisper a prayer. At first I tried to convince her to stop, that it wasn't healthy. But then I realized it was the only thing keeping her alive. The police closed the search 2 months later. No new leads, they said, voices low, polite. They didn't look me in the eye when they left. And that was the day something inside Linda broke. She went upstairs, opened Daniel's room, and sat on the edge of his bed for hours. I heard her humming. The same song she used to sing when he was little. The one about fireflies and coming home. I stood in the doorway and didn't have the heart to stop her. One night, as I was locking the back door, I noticed something strange. The light in the shed was on. I hadn't been in there in months. I opened the door slowly, expecting maybe a raccoon or the wind had blown it open. But what I saw made my stomach twist. Linda was sitting at Daniel's old workbench. In front of her were boxes filled with his things. Old photos, his notebooks, a mug with Boy One Son written on it. And scattered among them were printed emails, messages between Daniel and Emily. She'd been reading them. All of them. When she looked up at me, her eyes were red but calm, too calm. He didn't just disappear, Robert, she said softly. He was taken. I shook my head, trying to stay grounded. Linda, the police don't care, she interrupted, voice shaking. But I do. I know my son. He wouldn't just walk away. She shoved one of the emails toward me. It was from a few days before he vanished. I can't do this anymore, Emily. You're scaring me. Please stop coming to the apartment. I need space to breathe. Daniel, I stared at the words, heart pounding. The date. It was the same night he told us she'd texted him to meet where it all started. She lured him, Linda whispered. She did something to him. Her voice was trembling, but there was a darkness beneath it. A mother's rage, the kind that grows in silence and grief. After that night, Linda changed. She stopped crying. She started doing. She spent hours online, tracking names, locations, anything connected to Emily. She printed pictures, maps, receipts. Our kitchen became a wall of clues, strings, and notes. I tried to make her stop. You're torturing yourself, I said. She looked at me, eyes burning with something I hadn't seen in months. No, Robert. I'm finding the truth. You can either help me or stay out of my way. And that's when I saw it, the spark that used to belong to Emily. That same need for control, for revenge. It terrified me, but a part of me understood. Because every night I'd dream of Daniel standing on that cliff, rain soaking through his clothes, looking back at me one last time. And every time I woke up thinking, maybe she did do something. Maybe Linda was right. 2 weeks later, Linda told me she was going out for groceries. She didn't come home that night. Her phone went straight to voicemail. By morning, I knew where she'd gone. Emily's house. When I got there, the street was lined with police cars. Flashing lights reflected off wet pavement. An officer stopped me at the tape. Sir, you can't go in there. What happened? I asked, throat dry. He hesitated. There was a disturbance. 2 women inside. One injured. I pushed past him before he could stop me. The living room was chaos. Broken glass, blood on the carpet, furniture overturned. Emily sat on the floor, handcuffed, sobbing. Linda was on a stretcher, a bruise blooming across her face, blood running down her arm. When she saw me, she whispered, I found him. I froze. What? Her hand trembled as she tried to reach for me. She told me. Daniel came to her that night. They argued near the cliffs. He slipped. He fell. She panicked. She buried him there. The words hit me like a hammer. I couldn't breathe. Emily's cries grew louder. It was an accident. I didn't mean to. He came at me. He was angry. I didn't mean to. Linda's voice broke. She let me believe for months that my son just left. I took her hand. It's over now. You did what the police couldn't. But she shook her head, eyes empty. No, Robert. It's not over. Because now I know the truth, and it's killing me. In the days that followed, the police confirmed everything. They found Daniel's body near the edge of the cliff, buried shallow under leaves and rocks. Emily was charged with manslaughter. The trial made headlines for a week, and then the world moved on. But we didn't. I thought closure would bring peace. Didn't. Linda barely spoke after that. She spent most of her time in Daniel's room, sitting on his bed, whispering things only she could hear. One night, I found her writing in a notebook, pages filled with memories and apologies. For Daniel, she wrote, because I couldn't save you. For Emily, because I couldn't forgive you. And for myself, because I don't know who I am anymore. I read those words 100 times. They hurt every time. Grief changes people in strange ways. It makes you see the world through cracked glass. Sometimes at night, I'd hear her call his name softly, like she was expecting him to answer. Sometimes I almost answered back because the truth is, revenge doesn't heal. It only replaces one wound with another. It's been a year since that night. A year since the blue lights flashed across Emily's house. Since Linda was carried out on a stretcher. And since I last heard my son's name spoken aloud without someone whispering after. The world kept moving, but ours stayed frozen. I stopped working. The restaurant I used to manage called once, then stopped calling. Friends sent messages at first. Thinking of you, you're in our prayers. Then silence. Grief makes people uncomfortable. They don't know what to say to a man who's lost a son and a wife who's losing herself. Linda never fully recovered. Her body healed, but her mind, it stayed somewhere between that night and the cliff. She'd wake up at 3 a.m., wandering through the house whispering Daniel's name. Sometimes she'd stop by the window looking out into the dark and say softly, "He's just out there, Rob. He's waiting." At first I tried to help. Therapy, medication, family visits, nothing worked. She refused to talk about Emily or the trial. When the sentencing happened, she didn't even go. Emily got 8 years for manslaughter. 8 years for taking a life. For taking our life. But revenge has its own way of punishing people. 3 months after the sentencing, Emily's mother sent me a letter. It wasn't angry, like it was broken. She said Emily tried to take her own life in prison. She couldn't live with the guilt, the letter said. She kept saying she sees him every night, standing by her bed asking why. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to hate her more. Another part of me, the part Daniel got from me, just felt sorry. I burned the letter that night. Not out of anger, just exhaustion. Because hate, I learned, is heavy. You carry it long enough, it starts to look like love. By spring, Linda was spending most of her days at the old lake house, the one Daniel used to visit as a kid. She said the air there helped her breathe. I didn't argue. I'd drive up on weekends, bring her groceries, sit with her on the porch as she stared out at the water. Sometimes she'd smile, but it wasn't joy. It was memory. One afternoon, she said, "Do you ever think he forgives us?" I didn't answer right away. Because how do you answer that when you've buried the truth under so many layers of guilt? Finally, I said, "I think he'd just want us to stop hurting." She nodded, tears slipping down her cheek. Then maybe I should go tell him that. That night, I stayed awake listening to the rain. It sounded like footsteps on the roof, soft and steady. In the morning, she was gone. Her car was still outside. Her shoes were by the door. But by the lake, the place Daniel used to skip stones, there were footprints. And one of her scarves tangled in the reeds. The police called it an accident. I called it coming home. They never found her body. Just her locket. The one Daniel gave her for Mother's Day when he was 10. Inside, a picture of him as a boy, smiling with missing front teeth. After the funeral, I went back to the lake alone. The water was calm. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel angry, just empty. I sat there until sunset, whispering into the still air. "It's over now, Linda. You found him. You're both free, but freedom doesn't always mean peace. Some nights I still wake up to the sound of the wind, and for a second I swear I hear them. Linda laughing softly, Daniel answering back. It's enough to make me believe they found each other somewhere better than here. And as for me, I stay in the house they loved. I keep their photos on the mantle, not because I can't let go, but because they remind me of who I was before grief turned me into a stranger. People ask if I've forgiven Emily. I tell them forgiveness isn't something you give to others. It's something you give to yourself when you're tired of carrying ghosts. Some days I think I'm getting there. Other days I just talk to them, out loud like they're still here. I tell Daniel I'm proud of him. I tell Linda I'm sorry, and sometimes, when the morning light hits the window just right, I see two silhouettes in the yard. A woman and a young man, standing side by side. They don't say anything. They just stand there like they're watching over me. Maybe it's memory. Maybe it's mercy. But in that moment I feel something I haven't felt in years. Peace, because after all the shouting, the pain, the revenge, that's what's left. Not hate, not justice. Just love, broken but still breathing, and maybe that's enough. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to share it. Somewhere out there someone needs to hear they're not alone. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us. Family, love, and forgiveness are never simple, but always worth it.